about your collaboration as a couple.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Whenever you're ready.
My name is Bradley McCallum. I'm here in Miami at Gallery Nordine Zadoon's booth at the Postcard Fair. And I'm standing in front of a series of artwork that my wife and I created together. My wife is Tarry. It's McCallum and Tarry. We've been working for a decade, and we've been creating work that is on different levels examining the legacy of race in America.
Mm-hmm.
And within these paintings, there are really two different series of works that are on show. One body of work is looking at sort of archives, news footage archives, or images at one point were in circulation in either newspapers or print media, and it's oftentimes sort of generated from the civil rights movement or the generation just prior, getting into the kind of turbulence of the civil rights movement.
Right.
Concurrent, what we're working on now is a series called the Projection Series, and it's a series of images that are looking at film stills and stage photographs, examining entertainment and performance and race. So we're trying to see how the kind of conversation of race has been coded and packaged and repackaged through entertainment industry. So,
I guess my next question would be, you spoke about how you're looking at images from the civil rights era. How would you say that you find that this work applies to a contemporary audience, or what is your hope that on the impact that it'll have on a contemporary, viewer of your work?
Right now, more than ever, I think with the Obama campaign and ultimate success in terms of his presidency, we found that the conversation around race continues to be very coded, right? It's not as though the work is over now that we have a first African American biracial president, right? We're actually at, in a way, a lot of those conversations, those kind of coded conversations, are more in circulation right now than they've ever been. And so I think with our work, what we're hoping is that we're able to make something that feels like a kind of historic image that's been, filed away in an archive, and to bring that forward and to make it active. One of the things we do with our work is to work in two layers. Each of these works is an oil painting. It's an interpretation of the photograph, and then combined on the front surface is a silk, translucent, transparent photograph image. So it really becomes this merger between the photograph document and the interpreted layer. And it's that space between that creates a slight discord or distance, and that becomes the important point in terms of activating the eye. In a way, we tend to think of these and the experience of them as being like a film, something that's very cinematic, like a film that might be caught on a single shutter that repeats itself over and over and over again. Essentially, that happens just by shifting the point of alignment. So if you're looking at a picture, as you begin to move across the surface of the canvas, you realize that point of alignment, whether it's the eyes or the cufflinks on the shirt or some aspects of the background, that alignment begins to shift focus. And that shifting focus is what, in the end, activates these otherwise kind of historic images, makes them more immediate.
Yeah, and I think that the work's really exciting. And, for me, there's almost an appearance or a sense of the TV set almost from the screens and from that movement. I'm wondering how, it is a very original technique that, that you guys have come together with, and I'm wondering how you and your wife kind of started collaborating. Were you originally collaborating? I know that's a rare thing, to work and be married, so.
It's a very unique part of our work together. We began working together just prior to getting married, and we put a decade in. co-authoring work. And we have a mid-career survey that will be taking place at the Contemporary Museum in Baltimore in May.
How exciting.
And it'll be a point where we can look back at this work that we've done together. And, you know, I think oftentimes people ask who does what, you know, who is the painter, who is the photographer, those questions are really, they don't fit. At the core, we're conceptual artists. It's about the idea and the pursuit of sort of engaging civic discourse that we share. And I think as a collaboration, it has truly been a situation where our combined efforts are greater than the sum of the parts, right? There's something extra that happens that comes through the chemistry of our working, arguing, discussing, arguing, discussing, making it happen, and you know that is part of the sweat and toil. So
you spoke about you're having this mid-career show, and I know you have international representation and shown all over the world. How do you feel? Your work is about American race in America. How do you feel that? Well, if you don't feel, maybe you give me a skeptical look. Maybe you don't feel that way.
No, it is.
Feel free to correct me. But how do you feel that the reception changes based on where you go and the people you speak with?
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting. We have a strong collector base in Europe, and there's been a lot of support for the work in Europe. And I think in a way, it's easier for someone who's a foreigner to own a kind of difficult history in America because it's one step removed, right? So there is something about internationally an understanding of the history of slavery, the impact of that history in America, in the Americas in general. There is an understanding of the complexity of the American conversation on race. Certainly we have collectors and really strong collectors who are willing to take on and look at and live with our own history as well. But I do think in a way that tougher political work, it has an entry point that's a little bit different when the audience, the collector base is foreign. So it's a mixture.
Yeah.
But I think within collectors here, oftentimes there is a very personal, connection and draw.
Yeah.
It might be, a collector who has a strong collection of African American art, or it might be someone who really has an understanding of a particular history, and they want to take that in and understand the challenge that an image represents. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that does really well.
Just to play off of that, you talked a little bit about civic engagement and sort of like maybe public responsibility as artists, and I wanted to just maybe ask you about your ideas in relation to that. Like, what is, in your opinion, the artist's responsibility, contemporary artist responsibility, in engaging with the process of maybe public participation and civic engagement? Because I think, like, as of right now in our world, there's this sort of notion that there's a big separation between perhaps the art market and then also to the artists themselves and the role that they play maybe in relation to their own work. So I to bridge that gap, what are your kind of thoughts about that?
I mean, at the core, I think artists at some point end up asking themselves, what am I making and who am I making for?
Right.
And, when I grappled with those questions myself, and I think Jackie as well, it is a desire to create work that is about engaging, the audience in critical reflection and thinking. And, I'm not interested in making beautiful objects in and of themselves, but I think that there is, as an artist, there is a way of using the seductivity of a surface or of an image or the beauty to sort of draw people into something that becomes a tougher conversation. So I see that, it's about unpacking these different ideas of beauty and responsibility and politics and seduction and sort of moving back and forth between sort of drawing people in, holding their attention, making them feel uncomfortable, you know, and this kind of push and pull. It's, to me, that is where the kind of point of the art experience becomes the most interesting. That's certainly when I'm looking at other people's work, I become most interested. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great.